Well, I'll tell you what, I came across a line recently in a book, and the advice was you always want to be more interested than interesting. And what the author meant by that is you can never go wrong with trying to ask people, as you're doing right now, ask people a lot of questions,
Yeah.
right? People love to talk about themselves.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
All right.
All right.
We got a scorcher. It feels like, if it's going to mic you up, I think you could just.
Yeah, wherever, whenever. Get these out of here.
Yeah, I might do that.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah. So I saw a snippet of one of the things you did, but this is all new to me. So you just tell me. What
Okay,
you need
so basically,
yeah.
what I like to do is pick people's minds.
Yeah,
that
sure.
I just want to have a conversation. I guess it's like a platform I get to I use to have a conversation, just get knowledge from people that I would just like to pick their brains about. And you're
Absolutely.
definitely a person of interest.
Okay.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we got a former neighbor of mine, Jeff Mangum, Mr. Mangum. I feel so weird calling like adults like by their first name. Even though I'm an adult,
You're
Mr.
gonna call me Jeff throughout this thing.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, cool. So, Jeff is started off as a reporter. Well, how about you give it yourself? Give it our viewers about a bit of background about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'll give you sort of the 30,000. Where do you want me to start? Like the very beginning, or just
Tampa talk?
Okay, Tampa talk. Yeah, basically, I spent most of my childhood in Florida, and went to school in Florida, college in Florida. Got my start as a newspaper reporter down in the Tampa area with the Tampa Times. Then later worked for the Clearwater Sun and the Tampa Tribune. So really did a little bit of everything. It was a lot of cop coverage at that time, and this would have been in the 1980s.
Wow.
A lot of drug stuff, a lot of homicide stuff and whatnot. Then in the late 1980s, my wife and I moved up here to New York, and we both worked for what is now the Journal News. This was many, many years ago, and did that for a number of years, and then moved into public relations back in 2000, worked for a very large global public relations agency until about 2014, and have been doing my thing independently since then, which is basically what's known as media training, working with folks who are getting ready for media interviews, getting ready for presentations to government boards, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of everything. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think the title media training is pretty dope, because I feel like a lot of people that are get behind, in front of a camera, they need that type of stuff. I feel like people, me included, just get in front of a camera and feel like they just could do it naturally. But I feel like media training is very important to portray a message, or even to even look professional to a certain extent. Is that like something that you coach or work on with clients?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. A lot of the organizations I work with are larger companies that have literally hundreds, if not thousands, of people working for them. And some of them actually require their experts to go through media training, because typically, and I'm kind of generalizing here, you're dealing with very smart people who really know their thing, but they might not have a lot of experience being interviewed by top tier media, New York Times, CNBC, that sort of thing. So they really just need some guidance on what to know, how to prep, anticipating the questions that might come up in an interview, being up to date on the news. I mean, you'd be surprised how many people go into interviews and they haven't done a quick scan of the headlines that day just to know what's going on either in their industry or their field. So that's the kind of thing we work with them on. And then just raising the comfort level for them. So I'll spend a lot of time in prepping for these things, doing a deep dive, coming up with at least 30 questions that I can ask during an interview.
Yeah.
Just to help people be comfortable when they do these things. My whole thing is to ensure that people are represented fairly and accurately when they do engage. That's really what it's all about.
Right.
Yeah.
What type of things do you look for when you're doing I guess you call it like a consultation when you first meet with a client, to see it like where you see their strengths and their weaknesses?
Yeah.
What are some things that you look for, like traits or?
Yeah, well, probably first and foremost, and this might sound a little bit obvious, but you're really looking for their comfort level. If a person gives us the impression that they're nervous or touchy or defensive, that kind of thing, that's something that you want to help them work through and basically get them comfortable. Another thing that I'm very big on is having people give the reporter an overview at the very beginning, because one mistake a lot of people make is they'll sort of treat an interview as like a deposition, like a courtroom. They've been brought in and it's like, yes, no, that kind of thing. But you really want to have encourage them to have more of a conversation with the reporter, keeping in mind that, like today, everything that they say is going to be quoted or could potentially be used in some sort of format. So we work on that a lot. Setting some time limits, right? It's very easy to get drawn into a 90-minute discussion, which is fine if you want to have a 90-minute discussion. But often we'll encourage people to set that time parameter at the very beginning, maybe a half hour, 15 minutes, whatever it might be, especially if you're doing a phone interview. Usually you can cover what you need to cover in about 15 minutes or so. Right. Generalizing. Yeah.
So how did you basically, so this is your company, Mangum Media Training. So how did you go from working for a company, a huge company, to basically saying, hey, I think I'm comfortable enough to start my own? Because you've been doing it for what, like, since 2014, I think you said, right?
Yeah, well, independently, and I've been doing this altogether for about 25 years. I mean, fortunately, a lot of this type of business is based on the contacts and the relationships that you develop over the years.
Absolutely.
So I was fortunate enough to have folks who wanted to continue working with me, and also develop new clients along the way. So I've been working with some people, some organizations for more than a dozen years. And often what will happen in this field is someone will be at company A doing their thing, like a public relations person, and then they'll move to company B, company C, and they'll still continue to call you. So
that's a whole other web.
That's wonderful. Yeah, just to have those relationships with people.
Have you ever had like a client nightmare when there was like a lost hope? Like, oh gosh, we got we put 120% into this guy.
Yeah, let me put it this way. Some people are better at it than others. I tend to notice a pretty steady improvement no matter who we're working with.
Yeah.
I mean, there have been instances, and I'll give you one example. No names, can't give any particulars, but was working with a very large company that was had a problem, let's just say.
Yeah.
And the CEO, probably a very good person, very smart, knowledgeable, they were just not good at doing interviews. And ultimately, the CEO saw that he wasn't the one to be doing the interviews. So I think someone 2 or 3 steps down the chain wound up doing the interviews on this particular issue.
Right.
That doesn't happen all that often, believe it or not, because again, most people do show improvement and you can get them to the level that they're going to be comfortable going out and doing interviews. That's just been my experience over 25 years of doing this.
So you train both interviewers and interviewees.
It's more the interviewees.
Yeah,
it's more the interviewees. Typical scenario is, let's say you have an organization that is doing some deep dive research on a hot topic like AI or something. They're coming out with a report on AI. Well, how do you boil that down to make it easy for folks to understand in an interview situation? You know, hitting the highlights, thinking in terms of the 3 key points you want to make, that sort of thing. But also doing it in such a way that, again, it's more conversational and you don't sound like a broken record when you're just responding to the questions.
Gotcha. That's how I feel sometimes too. Like when I do interviews, like I've been a guest on a whole bunch of podcasts, and I sometimes feel like I'm repeating the same story. But I feel like that repetition actually makes it better to a certain extent.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things you have to be careful with. I think the way to look at it, and I've actually made this observation to folks over the years, it's almost like, think of yourself like an actor who goes on Broadway, for example, is doing the same role over and over again. Well, that audience seeing it might be seeing it or hearing it for the first time. So for example, a lot of times we'll work with people who are doing these media tours where they're doing maybe, 24 interviews a day with radio stations, television stations, podcasts all over the country.
Yeah, like a tour.
You have to keep it fresh because again, you're dealing with a new audience every time.
Yeah.
And that these are like satellite media tours. That's a a fairly common thing for companies that are rolling out new products or new reports or something.
Okay.
So people will do just a lot of interviews in one day. Again, it's just a matter of trying to keep it fresh.
Right.
Yeah. I love this place. Square House?
Square House,
Yeah.
man. When I was like in middle school and stuff, I would randomly just walk in there and they'd give me a tour every time.
Oh,
Love
yeah.
those guys, yeah. We
Yeah.
want to see the pizza oven, wherever, the bread oven.
Well, this is one of the things I love about this stretch of Rye is you can go back and look at these historic photographs from like 1900, and it's almost the same look. It's just the businesses have changed, but the buildings are largely the same.
Yeah,
Got
our
the
free reading
library.
room.
It's another one of my favorite little hangout spots here.
Yeah, one thing I always see you walking.
Yeah.
Do you drive ever?
What's that?
Do you ever drive?
I drive as needed. It's funny though. I've really come to the point, and this is probably maybe just a function of being a little bit older, is I just don't like to drive.
Oh, wow.
I really don't. And when I was younger, like when I was 17, I could not wait to get behind the wheel of a car. But now, if one of my sons wants to drive, fine. If I'm going to the airport, catch a ride.
Right.
But I do walk. It's mainly for exercise because my day, since I'm independent, I can structure my day really how I like, and I try to get in as much exercise as possible. But then I also like to make the most of it. So I'm usually plugged in listening to a book, right, or a podcast or something like that. Usually more books than anything.
That's awesome.
Just catching up on a lot of stuff I did not read as a younger person. Charles Dickens, some of the classics.
That's awesome.
I just finished The Gulag Archipelago by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, which is
Sounds like a big old book, man.
It's a bit, yeah. That's why I listened to it
Yeah.
and read it. But it took me
Keep going straight, Timmy.
a month or a month and a half to get through it.
Yeah.
But, it's quite interesting.
So, let's say you notice that somebody is like kind of nervous behind camera. What are some tips that you would tell that client to maybe calm their nerves, or techniques, or?
Well, I'll give you a real world example. I was working with the CEO one time, and the guy was technically very good. I mean, his industry, he knew it down cold. He was a real expert. But man, he was so uptight during the interview.
Yeah.
So during the interview with me, I should say. So
Oh wow.
I said
The training
to him,
part.
during the training, because during the trainings I do a lot of mock interviews, like just to kind of test people out. So I said to this guy, and I think he kind of looked at me like I was crazy when I said this. I said, "Let me ask you something. Do you ever go to sports bars?" He looked at me like, "Why are you asking me that question?" I said, "Well, no, just tell me. Do you ever go to sports bars?" Because I knew he did. I knew he was kind of a sports fan. He says, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I'll tell you what. For this next interview, I want you to pretend that we're at a sports bar and you're just talking to me, right? We're just talking about your company." And it was like night and day.
Wow.
The guy was just so, and he saw it because usually, as you know, we'll kind of video record these interviews and play them back.
Yeah.
And he could see the difference. So that for me was a real win. It was a real win for him because he got it, you know?
Right.
Yeah. And sometimes, again, you're working with super, super smart people. I mean, I've worked with people who have both MDs and PhDs, for example.
Yeah.
These are smart people.
I'm saying you work with the top people, man.
Yeah, and the thing of it is, and again, I'm generalizing here a little bit, but they get so self-critical and so uptight, like they're afraid to make a mistake.
Yeah.
So what I try to do is say, look, while we're doing these mock interviews, really kind of consider this a safe zone, right?
Yeah.
You can feel free to make mistakes. We're not going to. Yeah, there's no grading at the end of this thing. It's just to help you get better.
Right.
So that's a thing that we work with on folks often, especially super smart people.
Yeah,
right?
that's what I'm saying. I feel like when you're working with the execs and the CEOs, I feel like they're so business focused that they never really get almost like I don't say like they live under a rock, but kind of where they're kind of out of tune with what's going on, and then not really ever try to focus on being in front of the camera.
It really depends. I think some of the more, let's say, consumer-oriented businesses, they tend to kind of get it a little bit more. I think the challenge is sometimes with folks who are dealing with very technical, scientific things. Again, doctors would be an example because we're often high science. So how do you kind of boil this down so that the average person understands what you're talking about. And that's another thing we focus on is understanding who your audience is. So if you're speaking to a general interest, let's say a local television news station, you have to keep it fairly understandable for sort of a general audience. Now, if you're talking to a trade publication or a scientific journal, a little bit different audience, but you just have to keep that audience in mind. And I usually tell folks that they should try to start off as simple as possible, and then if they need to ramp it up, fine. But just try to speak in plain English is what it comes down to.
Got you. I feel like you have a great speaking voice and a great interviewing voice. Is that something you had to work on, or is this something that you just have? Like, you talk so clear and slow naturally. I'm jealous, damn near. Is that something you had to work on yourself, or is that something you just have?
Well, first of all, thank you for the compliment, because I don't see it, and I'm probably like a lot of people. I don't like to hear my own voice.
Timmy Cross.
So
and then go right.
But it might be a function of my mother was a school teacher and was pretty much a grammarian, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure I make a ton of grammatical mistakes in day-to-day conversation. But one thing, when my mother passed away in 2012, but I used to call her from time to time if I had a grammar question. I'm writing something, for example. I just, Mom, should I say this or that? What's the right term here?
Yeah.
So that might be it.
That's awesome.
Thank you for the compliment, because I don't necessarily see it all the time.
I feel like, I do these walk and talk interviews, and I feel like I'm either leaving dead air, or I cut off the interviewee, or I'm watching it back and I'm not finishing the question. I just feel like I don't know if it's a speech class I need to take, or me just figuring out my thoughts before I spit them out.
Well, I'll tell you what, I came across a line recently in a book, and the advice was you always want to be more interested than interesting. And what the author meant by that is you can never go wrong with trying to ask people, as you're doing right now, ask people a lot of questions, right? People love to talk about themselves. So if you just keep the conversation going, and one way I do it, and this is a little sort of trick of the trade, maybe just a trick of, in general, is as I'm speaking to you, you might say something, and then 3 or 4 minutes later, I'll come back at you and say, you said something a moment ago. It was really interesting, right? You mentioned, and you didn't do this morning, but I said, you mentioned growing up in Disro, right near Disro Park. Tell me about that. Right?
Gagliardo,
Gagliardo, I'm sorry, So you just really want to listen and be attuned, and then pick up and follow that thread a little bit. Go back to what people said and just kind of seize on things that you found interesting.
Okay, I like that. Well, a while back you mentioned how you see, I was trying to do it. A while back you mentioned that you made a lot of networking connections before you left your corporate job.
Yep.
What are some other things you might have taken away before you started your own company? Working for companies.
Yeah, I think that I had the benefit of doing it for 14 years. So I'm a big believer in pattern recognition. What I mean by that is sort of knowing what works well, what you might need to tweak a little bit. So over the years, I've become, for example, I try not to go heavy on PowerPoint presentations, or I'd much rather just have a conversation with someone. People don't want to sit there and have you click through slides. Sometimes you have to, just to kind of give them a basic grounding of things.
Yeah.
But that's something I learned early on, and I've just tried to refine and improve over the years. And a lot of that, again, is just based on my reading. I just try to read as much as possible, just have an understanding of history and connecting the dots, and that helps me understand various industries and various people, that kind of thing.
Was there a specific moment when you realized, like, okay, now I'm solidified as my own Mangum Media? Did it take off right away, or did it have a slow start?
Actually, fortunately, it took off right away. The one little wrinkle was COVID, which of course affected everyone.
Yeah.
And there was definitely a slow period during COVID because we weren't working with people in person. Now, the good news is that we were able to do things online and meet with people
Yeah.
virtually. And in hindsight, that's had some pluses and minuses. I mean, sometimes, for example, if you're just prepping someone for an hour or 90 minutes, it doesn't necessarily require flying to Chicago to do that, right?
Uh-huh.
You can just do it virtually.
Yeah.
But I would say that it's bounced back since COVID for sure. And also, I tried to diversify a little bit because in addition to doing media training, I got involved in working with a company that works with people who are making presentations to the FDA and the European Medicines Agency, and that's been interesting work as well. So you want to kind of have a broad mix of things,
Right.
and yeah, no, I'm also at the point in life where I'm certainly would welcome new clients. I'm not actually actively engaged in looking for them because I have a nice thing going right now. Yeah.
So were you only doing this with like higher execs, or do you work with people like in all different types of genres and stuff?
It tends to be larger corporations because those are the ones that have the need. In other words, if you have a company that employs 5,000 people and 10% of them are doing media interviews every year, that's a lot of people, right? So it tends to be with larger organizations, but certainly if I've worked with smaller organizations, I'd certainly be happy to do so. I've worked with just individuals who've had some issues that they wanted to discuss. So it's kind of a mix.
Do you have a team, or are you doing all this by yourself?
I would describe myself and my title, if you will, as principal, but I draw in people on an as-needed basis. So, for example, I know a lot of former journalists that I can call upon to role play as reporters and do some of the interviews, so that I can listen to the interview and then do a deep dive and give them some feedback. And the reason I do that is former journalists or anyone who has some journalism experience, there's kind of a rhythm and a style to asking questions, and I want to make it as realistic as possible.
Yeah.
And there are some super smart folks in the public relations field who came up through that world. I've just found that the people who ask the most realistic sounding questions tend to have journalism backgrounds or reporting backgrounds. Mm-hmm. So I try to tap into that. And again, having worked over the years, I know a lot of people I can call upon who have some specific expertise. So, for example, if I need someone who has an expertise in banking, for example, I know certain people to call, and I can get them in basically on a freelance basis. Yeah.
And I would be able to ask them questions and stuff that's awesome.
Yeah, and I do the bulk of the research because I like to do as much reading and immerse myself in an issue or a topic. And I would very much consider myself a generalist in that I can try to absorb a lot of information very quickly, kind of distill it down. And the biggest compliment, probably one of the greatest compliments I've ever received, I had one person say to me, "You know more about our company than we do." I didn't, but it was still nice to hear that. So that was fun. I've read that you specialize in crisis media training. Is that what it was called? Yeah, that's sort of a subset of public relations, and that's when a company is dealing with a major crisis. They have a product recall or something like that. I was heavily involved in that when I worked in the public relations agency. I don't do that so much anymore because it's very, very intensive, right? You have to be on call really during a crisis situation 24/7.
Yeah.
And again,
they're on our ass. We got to do something.
Exactly. I mean, believe me, I received several calls literally at 3:00 in the morning when I was in the agency world.
Wow.
And had to go places at that time of dead of night. So that's just not for me at this stage. I'm willing to certainly help out as needed.
Yeah.
One thing that's very, very big is what's known as crisis planning, or developing a so-called crisis plan. So in other words, let's say you are, and speaking hypothetically, a chemical manufacturing company. Well, there are a lot of things that can go wrong with chemical manufacturing, right?
Bad things.
Bad things can
Serious
go wrong,
things, too.
and you want to be prepared to respond should something go wrong. So a crisis plan will typically have a list of all the stakeholders you need to reach out to, stay in contact with. And of course, the big, huge change over the last decade or so has just been the digital impact. I mean, just it used to be, 15, 20 years ago, crisis erupts, we'll put out a press release and then deal with it accordingly. But in the current digital environment, you just have to be ready to go within seconds.
Literally.
Within seconds. And it's really interesting because if you do an analysis of the media people are following now, everybody thinks, oh, well, let's say something happens in Los Angeles. Oh,
Right.
They're watching the local television stations. No. It's influencers and people who
Yeah,
might
they're
have
on TikTok
following.
and Instagram looking at it.
Exactly.
You're going to go left, Tim. We're basically looping them back around to where we were at. So it's
Okay.
like around the block. We're going to head back to for CVS.
I'll tell you a story that really brought it home for me a couple of years ago. What my younger son, he's been involved in the music industry, basically promoting bands and concerts, mainly on the West Coast, in Hawaii and elsewhere.
Hawaii, bro.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, anyway, he was coming home for a visit. I think this was like 2 or 3 years ago. And the New York Times, and I still get the print edition of the New York Times just because it's.
Right.
I like reading it. I like having
You
it.
be the god, man.
Yeah. So I mean, read it digitally too, but I still like that print edition. So I was reading the New York Times, and they had this big blowout story on some band. I don't even know who the band was, just some big band, right? So I held on to the story for my son when he came home to visit. I said, Dad, I need to show you this. Here, look at this story.
Yeah.
New York Times, big story. Maybe some of the bands you work with. He looked at me and he said, Dad, bands I work with, they don't care about the New York Times.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, what? What do you mean they don't care about the New York Times? And he could tell I was like a little perturbed
Shocked,
by that.
yeah.
So he said, no, don't get me wrong. He says, it's not that they don't care about the New York Times. It's just that they put more of an emphasis on, as you said,
Instagram and TikTok.
Exactly.
Social media. Yeah.
Exactly. So
That's funny though, because that goes back to saying how there's an audience for everything too. Like my grandparents and my mom and my aunts and uncles, they love the New York Times article.
oh yeah,
People in my that I'm actually trying to entertain, they're not reading the newspaper at all. Not even the right record.
well, see, that's the other thing though, is that I think certainly if you're an executive, you have to be up on the news, have to be reading as much as possible. And I always told the younger people in the public relations world that if you're not reading the Wall Street Journal or New York Times every day, it's almost like a dereliction of duty. You just have to know what's going on, just to be informed, right?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
feel like those people that are in it, they love that stuff anyways, that print. They just have a...
Yeah, and I think also it's the platform. It's whatever platform is better for you. I mean, obviously, I have my phone tucked away here. I could call up anything at any time.
Yeah.
And I'm deep in the digital world as well. But it's just you have to know what's going on,
Right.
and especially in that field because, like for example, in the public relations industry, a lot of times people when they first start out, they're doing kind of media lists and things that aren't particularly exciting, so to speak. But as you move up, you're really being you called upon for your knowledge and for your judgment, right? So you have to be in a position to really kind of know what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And how do you get that way? You have to read. You have to know what's going on.
Yeah.
There was a great quote. I think it was from. I'm going to mangle it, but it was from Jim Mattis, who used to be. He was a top Marine Corps general, served as Secretary of Defense at one point, and he basically said that if you haven't read like 100 books by the time you're an adult, you're basically functionally illiterate, right? Because no matter how smart you are, you can't just base your view of the world on what's just in your head alone.
You haven't experienced anything.
You have to have some experience. You have to be taking in information.
Right.
And so again, that's when I do speak to young people, as I do from time to time, I just say, look, you just want to try to read as much as possible and know what's going on. And I think especially as you get older, you might read stuff you might read, for example, Shakespeare in high school, right? And it might not really resonate or mean anything, right? But then as you get older, you start really seeing how things that Shakespeare wrote about
has influenced other things in real life.
Right.
Or not in real life, but influenced other creators and stuff.
Right. Well, for example, the famous play Othello, right?
Okay.
There was a character in Othello who his name was Iago, and he was basically this backstabber, right? Now, 17-year-old kid might not get that concept necessarily.
Right.
But if you've been in the corporate world or just life in general, by the time you hit your 40s or 50s, it's really going to resonate.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why I think that sometimes classics like that can be even more important as you get older and do a deeper dive on things.
Made me want to read a book, man. I don't know. I got my favorite authors back in the day was Roald Dahl.
Okay, sure, sure.
And I was a childhood growing up, so I might go just see what he's got, bring back some memories. I'm a big fan of nostalgia.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'll tell you, and my wife gets tired of me saying this because I'm like a broken record when it comes to audiobooks.
Yeah.
But man, that can be really a benefit because you can do two things at once. You can take your long walk, but also be plugged in.
And it's funny because I'm the type of person that would have to read the same page 3 times because I lost my track or I lost focus.
Oh,
so
yeah?
an audiobook would definitely help me out. And I've been doing that. Spotify has great audiobooks, and I also use Audible because I have a subscription to Amazon Prime.
Oh, good. So, yeah. Well, and the thing of it is, if you miss something, like on my walks, like here we have this I guess garbage truck coming by. If I were listening to a book right now, I wouldn't be able to hear it. So I just rewind. I just hit that little
back 10 seconds. 15 seconds.
15-second backwind thing, and you're good.
Do you mainly read like fantasy books or crime books, or what kind of genres do you read?
No, well, when I was younger, I was almost exclusively nonfiction. It would be nonfiction books, history books.
Oh, wow.
But lately, and by lately I'm thinking probably within the last 5 years or so, I've really tried to read as much fiction as possible.
Okay.
And I think I mentioned Charles Dickens. I technically read some Charles Dickens when I was in high school. Didn't register.
Right.
I read Great Expectations in the 9th grade. Total blank on it.
Right.
I read it, or listened to it, I guess about a year ago. Fantastic book, right? Because I was, I think, mature enough now to kind of understand it. So I've read, Victor Hugo, Les Miserables. I've read Tale of Two Cities, another Dickens book.
Yeah.
Right now I'm listening to a fairly odd little Russian book called Dead Souls by Nikolai Gogol.
Wow.
Which I can't even explain what it's about because the title alone will tell you it's an odd book.
Right.
But I just had this, I guess, like a fiction deficit.
Yeah.
That I'm trying to make up for.
Yeah, I just feel like that's how I'm the opposite, and I don't like that. I feel like I need to get into fiction. Like I don't even like watching movies anymore because I'm like, this is unrealistic as hell. But I feel like you just gotta dive into your imagination. When I read books, I'm more of a self-help book, autobiography book.
Oh yeah.
I like to hear people's stories and how they made it from nothing to a certain, how they overcame stuff and became wealthy and successful.
Yeah.
So I feel like everything else, I hate to say it might be like a waste of time at this point in my life. At this stage, like I got to get all the help I need. Fantasy does nothing for me.
The thing of it is, you're relatively young, so you have probably, 60, 70 years of reading ahead of you.
Yeah, okay, I like that.
So you'll be good. You'll be good. And as long as you're curious, and you definitely are, that's the thing. You just want to be curious about the world, curious about people. I think if I had any advice or additional advice to folks, it's just try to be is try to be curious about other people. It's funny. We just walked by the old Methodist church, and I'll tell you a little quick story there. I remember we attended there when my kids were young and before the church unfortunately closed. There was an older woman there,
Right.
From Rye.
I think I went to church with you guys a couple times back in the day.
Okay.
Yeah, I went to Sunday school and everything.
Well, there was an older woman there who I guess at the time was probably in her 80s. Yeah. Her name was Dorothy Ennis. And I would see her at church, and in my mind, she was just this nice little old lady who sat over here.
Right.
But I didn't really engage with her. And when she died, I read her obituary, right? And her obituary basically talked about her life, growing up, moving to New York, moving to Rye. And the kicker was, it said that she was like the first female president of, I forget the organization, but something like the International Association of Magicians.
Oh, wow.
Right? And then it said, in her spare time, she liked to sail her Chinese junk on the Long Island Sound.
Chinese junk?
Yeah, like an old ship. Yeah. And I'm reading this, and I'm thinking to myself, number one, I didn't know that. Yeah. Number two, why didn't I know that? Right. Because I never took the time to get to know her. Yeah. And this is probably going back more than 20 years now. It was a real lesson for me. It's like you'll see these people, and you'll see it Rye wherever you are. You don't necessarily know the backstory.
Everybody got a crazy story.
Everybody has a story, and you'll talk to people, and then you'll find out they have some really, really interesting stories. That's why one of the things I also try to do is just kind of get a sense of who I'm working with. I'll always start off by asking them, well, how did you get into this field? Yeah. You're an accountant, you're a CEO, how did you get here? How did you get into this line of work? And I've had a couple of people, and these are very, very successful people who told me that they grew up relatively poor, and they really just wanted to get into a field where they could make money and be comfortable. Yeah. And that's how they got into that particular line of work. I've worked with people who started off as actors or started off in the military. So you just never know until you ask.
Have you worked with any athletes?
I have worked with athletes, not super recently. I've worked with a couple of, I can't name names, obviously, but some NBA players.
Very serious business here, guys.
Yeah, well, here's the thing, though. It's not as cool as it sounds, because I think in almost every instance it was an athlete who was serving as a spokesman for some medical condition or something like that, which is fine. But it wasn't like I was working with them to talk about the the Final Four or whatever.
Prepping for press conferences and stuff.
Yeah, but as a matter of fact, the ones I've worked with
go straight and then cross to the left.
Have been we're involved in satellite media tours, which is basically doing these quick hit.
I'm definitely gonna have to Google that term.
Yeah, it might even be outdated again because of the changes with the digital revolution. But this would be where you might be doing, again, 12 3-minute interviews. Like it's Good Morning Cincinnati. You're being interviewed on there.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Got you. Is that like another Timmy shirt?
What's that?
I was talking making sure Timmy, but I was gonna say, would that be determined? I mean, considered as like remote interviews,
yes,
kind of?
Yeah, that would be like a live remote. I mean, typically the way it'll work is you'll get brought into a studio, planted in a chair, and then they'll wire you up, and then it's just a round robin of interviews all over the country.
Oh yeah. I think they in the entertainment world they also call that a junket.
Yes, yeah. I mean, one of the big changes, and we haven't really talked too much about that, but the changing nature of the media is a lot of organizations now are sort of going direct to consumer, so to speak. They're producing their own podcasts, they're producing their own material, and they're basically bypassing the traditional media. And that might be good for the organization, but I think that certainly for democracy, I think, for example, if you're a publicly traded company, you should be responding to tough questions. You should expect tough questions. But if you kind of eliminate the middleman, so to speak,
Yeah.
there's a loss there. Again, it's probably good, quote unquote, good for the company, but I think there's something lost there when you don't have a real robust exchange with the interviewer.
Right. Do you feel like the downfall of television and cable is affecting your career, or not your career, but your field of work?
I think the main impact that I've seen, and I think this is for everyone who is in this field, is it's really been the decline of local and regional media. The newspapers, for example. I'll give an example of what I'm talking about. Let's say that you're the CEO of the Scarphone widget company,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So the Scarphone widget company has operations in 12 states, 8 major cities, Charlotte, North Carolina, Chicago, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, it used to be that the Charlotte Observer probably covered the Scarphone widget business.
Okay.
They probably had a reporter dedicated to covering
Updates and stuff. Yeah. And
Yeah.
for a little segment in the
Right.
paper, right? Okay.
What's going on today over at the widget factory in
Gotcha.
Charlotte?
Uh-huh.
Well, if that paper has eliminated 70% of its staff, they don't have anyone covering Scarphone widgets.
Right.
Therefore, they don't necessarily need to train anyone to be interviewed about
Yeah,
Scarphone
so
widgets, right?
And so you don't think that you would be able to convert to somehow to help people with social media? 'Cause I think that's where everything is going. Like people are going.
Oh yeah, no. Let me correct the record on this one. I do. I've worked with a number of people who've been prepping for podcasts, for example, and it's a little bit different dynamic. And but you still have to anticipate the questions that are going to come up, and try to road test it as much as possible. And I personally love podcasts because I kind of liken it to the BBC, British Broadcasting Corporation, of probably 80 years ago, where that you could go on to a BBC program for 90 minutes and just talk about butterflies or whatever the topic was, right? And that kind of went away in the modern or semi-modern media era, but I think we're kind of returning to that. So now, as we all know, some of the more popular, well, personally, some of the more popular podcasts can run 3 hours long.
Yeah. Joe Rogan, shout out to him.
Exactly.
What are some podcasts that you do listen to?
Oh gosh,
your top 3.
I would have to give some. I should have anticipated that question. I can't tell you right off the top of my head.
What's the last one you listened to?
The last one I listened to, the BBC. I just mentioned the BBC has a really cool series they do on history stuff.
Yeah.
So let's say if you just enter the search term BBC and Carthage, right? The decline of or Rome or something like that. You'd probably get a dozen hits on various topics and issues, and they have like these 90-minute
That's awesome.
podcasts, interviews with academic experts on a particular topic.
All right. What are some cool places that your job or your company specifically has had you travel to?
Yeah, well, I've been pretty much all over Europe, Caribbean, Canada. Been to Dubai several times, which was very interesting. Been to my most recent one. I did a project late last year over in Switzerland.
Oh wow,
which was fun. So yeah, I mean, the one place I haven't been, I'd like to go to at some point is Asia.
Okay, you haven't been anywhere in Asia?
No, not been anywhere in Asia. My wife's been to Japan, but I've never been to. I've never been west of Hawaii.
Okay.
But, I'd like to rectify that at some point. But it's funny. I actually know people who do what I do in Australia, for example, who are outstanding. And there's probably no need for me to go to Australia when there's a really good media trainer in Australia who knows the Australian media, because most of the people I work with, even if we're doing something in Switzerland, for example, they're working with either US media or European media that are read and consumed here in the United States, like the Financial Times, for example.
Right.
But I think if you were going to be prepping for an interview with, let's say, a Dutch publication, right?
Uh-huh.
You'd probably want to work with someone who knows that local or regional
Yeah.
media world.
That's another question I had for you was, do you have like a competition? Like, is there like a market for like, we got to fight who we're going to book to train our guys?
The competition, I think it used to be the major public relations firms, but I think my impression is that some of them have kind of scaled back on what they do in that space. I would say, I'm not going to name names, there's some probably about 4 other people that I know of, at least in the New York area,
Gotcha.
who are really good, and their names come up from time to time. And we kind of have, I guess like friendly competition. I mean, these are good folks. I like these folks,
Yeah.
but they're like the ones who I'm constantly. I'll see their names, or I'm in the mix if we're pursuing a particular project. I mean, it's a fairly small world, and that's probably a good thing.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Stay busy, man.
Yeah.
Since we did, Timmy, how long has this interview been so far? We've been walking for 45 minutes, man. What advice could you give me to help me improve on my interviewing skills, perhaps?
Well, first of all, this is the first time I've seen your interviewing skills.
Okay.
But I think they're pretty darn good because you're curious, and that's the main thing. I think we talked about it a little bit earlier in our conversation. Is just picking up and following up on things. Again, if someone says something you're intrigued about or curious about or want to go back to, and I think you've been doing that, I would just encourage you to keep doing that.
Serve them back.
Yeah.
Because I really got to pay attention.
Yeah. And sometimes for me, another approach that I will use is I kind of view almost everyone I talk to, now I'm not talking about for media interviews or anything like that, but just like people, as I can always learn something from someone, right? Like let's say we're just walking by these construction projects here.
Right.
I know absolutely nothing about how to do utility repair work,
Yeah.
right? But if I were talking to someone doing that, I'd be curious. Like, the way I approach it is, what don't I know
Literally.
about this topic?
I could interview a high school custodian and make it a story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like what are the issues? What are the weird things that you've encountered in your job?
Yeah.
Oh, you wouldn't believe it. When
Exactly.
this happens, on senior day, the kids all go crazy. They do.
You know who's good at doing that? There's a podcast called This Past Weekend with Theo Vaughn, and he interviews anybody from a funeral parlor owner to a lunch lady, and you get the craziest stories out of them.
Oh yeah, I've seen his podcast several times. He's terrific because he kind of just sits back and has an open mind about it.
Yeah.
And what's really cool about him is he just has this great sense of wonder.
Right.
It's like someone will tell him. I actually saw an interview he did with like a medical examiner, right? Who was talking about the weird things that he encountered being a medical examiner.
Exactly.
And Vaughn's reaction was like, "Oh man, what?"
Yeah, that's what
Tell
you
me more
need.
about that. So that was really interesting.
What's one book you think you could recommend me that might give me more insight on media and reporting skills or something like that?
I'll tell you, it's not necessarily media reporting skills, but there's one book that I think you'd have a lot of fun with.
Yeah.
And it was written by an ancient Greek, I think, student of Aristotle or Plato or whoever.
Yeah.
It was called The Characters
Yeah.
by a fellow named Theophrastus.
Okay.
I'll spell that Theophrastus, Theophrastus.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a short book. You can easily get it on Amazon or wherever. And it's like character studies of, I don't know, something like 35,
Say, watch out, bro.
35 different personality types.
Yeah.
Right? And I read it years ago because I read a review of it in the Wall Street Journal. And it was fascinating, right? It's a quick read. Probably get an audiobook version of it.
Okay. Yeah.
But it just gives you like insight into different personalities.
I like that.
So I think that would do it.
Wrap it up. I just want to give. I want you to tell our viewers maybe a word of motivation if they got a corporate job and they want to leave that and start their own thing, but they might be afraid to take that leap. Maybe you can give them a word of encouragement, a word of advice.
Yeah, I would just say prepare ahead of time. Go into it with a business plan in mind, a potential base of clients. I guess don't go into it cold. Just sort of lay the groundwork for what you want to do, so you can make a success of it. And then just do all the business things you're supposed to do. Yeah, make sure you have a business account,
Mm,
an accountant if you need one, that kind of thing. But it's basically like the old scout saying, "Be prepared." That would
prepare.
probably be my advice.
Jeff Mangum, ladies and gentlemen. Can you tell everybody where they can find you if they need to book you for anything or more information about
Yeah,
Mangum Media? Go ahead.
sure. Well, the last name is spelled Mangum, and the website is www.mangummedia.com, and that has all my contact information and all that good stuff.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, all right, Angelo. Thank you,
Catch you
man.
next
Good
time.
talking to
Yes,
you.
sir.